Hey, welcome to Ruddle Me This. Hope you're having a lovely Monday morning. I am the Ruddler, Taylor Ruddle, and today's interview is with a very good friend of mine. He is a local stand-up comedian. He is also, much like myself, a man of many hats. As well as stand-up, he also does music and a lot of different artistic mediums. He's very good at drawing. He shares a name with someone very famous, and that person is Stephen King. So we get into that a tiny bit in the podcast, but for the most part we decided to not necessarily go in with any particular poster or media or scary stories or anything like that like I have previously done in past podcasts, and we figured it might be fun to just do like a generic, I believe the format is called Two Dudes Talking podcast. Given that this was recorded on King's birthday, I felt like it was appropriate to have Steve King on, and we get into a little bit of chatter about what we feel about the Royals. I perhaps make a comparison of perhaps compare the Queen to Jackie Chan at one point. This leads into us talking a little bit about the monarchy, which leads us to talking about the James Bond franchise, and we start to riff some ideas about what a New Zealand version of James Bond might be like. And then after that we get into a more normal conversation. I actually remember to ask Steve some questions about his history and how he got into music, how he decided on his name Gearloose, how he got into art, stand-up, and all that fun creative stuff. So with that, let's crack into the interview. Hope you enjoy it. Please welcome to the show, Steve King. Alright, Steve, welcome to the podcast. Happy birthday, I must say.
Oh, thanks, mate. Yep.
Yeah. I figured we could talk a little bit about the monarchy, because it is King's birthday today, and, you know, Steve King, so that might be a little saucy, salacious title for the podcast, talking about the monarchy. Okay. You're a little bit older than I am, so you may have a different impression of the whole monarchy, but what do you think about the monarchy? Because for those overseas who don't know, New Zealand is still technically a sovereign country, aren't we? We still have a king now, but then we also have parliament like the UK. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the monarchy?
I think it's a bit ridiculous. Like us, like I don't know, what would the word be? Revering royalty on the other side of the planet.
People get really into the royals here, don't they? You still see it on the cover of every single magazine. All this drama between. Who's the one they hate at the moment? Not Kate. It's
the younger fella, the ginger.
Yes, Meghan Markle. Ginger. She's like public enemy number one to the tabloids at the moment for God knows whatever reason. I remember seeing years ago there was it was in news. I think it was on the radio maybe. There was a couple that for some reason they really wanted to go to the royal wedding for, I don't know, it was their dream for whatever reason. I don't want to shit on someone's dream, but it's not a dream I understand necessarily. And they wanted to go to the royal wedding, and they wrote this letter like pleading, and then I imagine the Buckingham Palace just has a stock response that they send back to requests like that, and it just said something to the effect of the Queen cannot help you, or something along those lines. And the people were like devastated to like, what do you mean the Queen cannot help you? And like they were going on about it on the radio and stuff, and my brother was just telling me about it. The Queen helps those
who help themselves.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not something I particularly understand. That being said, I did tend to idolize like Jackie Chan when I was a teenager, so maybe I do understand royal worship.
I mean, Jackie Chan's a different thing entirely, though. He's a stunt man. He's an impressive martial artist.
Good point.
The Royals do fuck all.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. Like you've really made me realise how dumb that statement was. Comparing the Queen to Jackie Chan. I mean, the Queen never even did. The Queen never even jumped between two buildings. She never even used a little stool as a weapon. She never defended a priceless Ming vase from countless attackers.
Was it Rumble in the Bronx where he does like a handstand for ages and he's like walking around on his hands?
Fantastic movies.
Yeah.
There was something I do I've been watching some of the James Bond films recently.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, I'm just going to mute myself. Alright, that's better. I've been watching the James Bond films, and I did like that I don't know what it is, that's that stiff upper lip British thing where, you know, James Bond goes to war for like Queen and country. I thought that was kind of a cool thing to be able to say. And I think they did, was it either Johnny English or James Bond at one of the Olympics? They did like a skydiving with the Queen skit, and they both jumped. Well, you know, the Queen didn't really do it. They would have made her a lot more like Jackie Chan if she did, but they did a whole thing where they jumped out of an airplane and landed at the opening ceremony of the London Olympics, and it was all very like, you know, Bond and the Queen. I don't know, it's just a cool I think that's cool for some reason.
Yeah, the world's definitely a different place 2023 than it was in, I don't know, 1953.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't watch James Bond recently, but I did watch it's a little mini series about Ian Fleming, the guy who wrote James Bond.
Yeah.
And it's about him like in the military, like being a spy and stuff. That was pretty cool.
Because a lot of the Bond stuff was based on his time in the Navy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I remember reading this great... it was like someone had gone through and read all of the early books, and they'd made a list of all of the stuff that they noticed about the James Bond books, and there was one that made me laugh quite a lot. It was about how there's so much racism in the books, but it's not the racism you'd expect. It'd be like racism against like Belgians or something like that, and it would be like, those sneaky Belgians or whatever, and like it's just so removed from the racism you see in today's world.
Yeah.
I was wondering...
There's always a reason to hate somebody, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I was wondering if you would mind... It's kind of a bit you do, but it always makes me laugh about how James Bond is the worst spy ever. Is there something you mind talking about, or would you prefer to keep that for the stage?
I've only ever done it once. When that last James Bond movie came out. Oh,
of course, yeah.
But, yeah, it's a... Yeah, we can talk about it.
Yeah, well, I just find that so funny, the way that it's almost like you entirely dismantled the whole franchise with this one phrase of like, he introduces himself to everybody.
Yeah.
Like, that made me laugh so much. And then I think you pointed out that everyone knows his drink order.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there was something else about a Union... Everything he has is Union Jack designed. Like he'll parachute out of a plane over Russia, and there'll just be this big Union Jack.
There he goes.
Parachute. Yeah, exactly. I was so you've only seen the last one?
I haven't seen the last one.
Oh, okay.
The last one I saw was probably Skyfall.
That was a pretty good Bond movie.
Yeah, it's a bit different.
I tried to do a stand-up bit about if they made a New Zealand spy, he would be called Jim Bond. And, you know, I had some bits like the movie would be called Dr. Yeah Nah instead of Dr. No. And his drink would be like a can of... Spates, or a can of Double Brown, not shaken, otherwise I'll jump over there and thump you, or that sort of thing. I wonder what kind of because James Bond movies always have some ridiculous thing that's like a laser on the moon, or ridiculous spy plot. Like, I wonder what kind of plots, like, a Bond villain might try to fill the beehive with actual bees, or I don't know, chop down One Tree Hill, or put a laser on top of the Sky Tower, something like that. What do you reckon would be good?
Right? One Tree Hill doesn't have a tree on it no more, I don't think.
Oh, did it get chopped down?
I think so.
Oh, right. Well, maybe that was the plot then. We missed it.
Yeah, we failed.
Jim Bond failed.
Jim didn't bloody get out of bed.
You can just picture him wearing those red striped gumboots. He'd have like a full tux on, but he'd leave his gumboots on underneath. I like to think he'd have a double life. Like, he has to he does his spy thing, and then he has to get up at 6 to go and milk on his dairy farm. I don't know why. The problem with stuff
Would
like
he wear a
that...
tux? You reckon he'd wear a tux?
That's a good question. Like...
It's like a Warriors jersey.
Yeah, that's true. He blends into each region he's going to by putting on their rugby jersey. Like, you just see him get out of the water, and then he's got like a reversible, like a Chiefs Crusaders t-shirt, and then he's running through a crowd, running from all these people. Where is the Chiefs? Is that Bay of Plenty? We're going to review how little we know about rugby.
I think
here.
that's the one that's below Auckland, Waikato.
Waikato, yeah. So he's running from goons in Waikato. He's wearing a Crusaders t-shirt. He does that spy quick change thing where he ducks into like a news agent, comes out wearing a Chiefs t-shirt, and then they're like, where did he go? Where did he go? He just loses them completely. I quite like riffing on this New Zealand James Bond. What are some other... There's the henchman, the idea of henchman.
Yeah.
What kind of henchman do you think a New Zealand James Bond would have?
I
was thinking
like
you
Odd
could
Job,
also
I
have...
guess.
Huh?
Like Odd Job.
Yeah, there would be definitely a guy who throws a rugby ball with the force of, a rocket launcher or something. He would... Because Odd Job used to throw a hat. That was his gimmick, wasn't it?
Yes.
And then Jaws used to have the teeth.
Oh, yeah,
So it would be like he throws like a steel rugby ball at them, and then, I don't know, it caves their chest in. That seems villainous to me.
Yeah.
There would be a dude who definitely controls, like... He could control like sheep with a Pied Piper kind of situation.
Yeah. What about the ladies with the dirty names, but New Zealand dirty names?
Oh, yeah, that's really funny. I'm gonna struggle to come up... these always take me ages to come up with like wordy jokes, but there would be like... Yeah, it'd be like Ivana Shag or something like that, eh? Gizaroot.
Some
God.
Yeah.
The funniest thing as
Something
well
with
is
minge
like...
in it.
What's that?
Something with minge in it.
Yeah, that's true.
Or
I reckon...
with... Don't worry.
I was thinking, coming back to the idea of the suit thing again, I reckon he would have like a suit, but it would be kind of shabby. Like it would be
a Hallenstein suit.
Yeah, exactly. Like, do you know when you see a couple, like this is the classic Kiwi combo, is seeing girlfriend dressed up really nice, looks great, and then boyfriend who's like reluctantly, he's dressed nicer, but she's definitely looking a lot better than he is.
Yeah.
I feel like it would be that kind of look. I think Hallenstein suits. That's the image. If you're from New Zealand, I don't know what the overseas equivalent of Hallensteins would be. How would you describe Hallensteins to foreigners? It's like baby's first kind of menswear store, isn't it?
I guess it's like H&M. We have H&M here now as well, but
yeah,
it's just like reasonably priced clothes.
Yeah. I have you ever worked in a retail, like selling clothes or anything? I went for a single job interview, like a job trial at Hallenstein's, and rightfully so did not get the job. But it's a weird... Have you ever worked in like a shopping mall or anything like that?
Nah, just the retail that I do currently.
Yeah. You had some customer facing experiences though.
Yeah.
Well, you have to deal with customers now, but have you ever been like on the sales floor or anything?
Yeah.
Did you enjoy that kind of side of it?
That's why I stopped doing it.
Yeah, that's fair, yeah. What was I going to say? I suppose because you're currently working there, let's not go too much into your current job. I've just left the job, so that's, again, well, combination of things. Injury and not really enjoying it as much as I used to. Aside from the job that you have now, do you have like your least favourite job that you ever did?
Not really. No.
Fair enough. Then we'll move along. Well,
this is what I was worried about.
Exactly. Is there a siren going past just now?
It is, yeah.
Wow.
This is what I was worried about with doing a podcast, is not being interesting.
What is that? The not interesting answer police?
Yeah. They're going to take me away.
I was going to say, let's talk a little bit about your music. You're also you're a man of many hats, actually. Both of us, to be honest, have a lot of different creative disciplines that we pursue.
Mm-hmm.
Your musical alias, if you will, is Gear Loose.
Yep.
I know you've told me this already, but maybe for the listeners out there, how did you come by that name again?
Well, I thought that I should use a stage name or alias, because my actual name, as you would have said in the intro there, is Stephen King. And there's also there's already quite a famous person called Stephen King, so I thought I'd use a different name. And when trying to think of one, I just went into nostalgia and childhood and stuff. There's a character called Gyro Gearloose from the DuckTales, Scrooge McDuck and all that. It's the scientist that works for Scrooge McDuck, and I just used that Gearloose because it sounded cool.
Yeah, it is a good name. I always, when you do your, like, I don't know, I visualize bands weirdly. Like, do you visualize it as it is a band that is called Gear Loose, or are you Gear Loose?
That's a good question. Well, I mean, it all started with just like going on stage with an acoustic guitar, just me by myself, and then I wanted to expand the sound to make it sound like a band rather than just a guy with an acoustic guitar, because to me, just an acoustic guitar is a little bit boring.
Right.
So I was trying to make it sound bigger, so then I got a 12-string acoustic guitar, so maybe it would sound like 2 guitars at once, and that wasn't enough.
Nice. Yeah.
That wasn't enough, so then I had the guitar with a keyboard and a loop pedal, and then that evolved into using like a computer with this software called it's called MainStage. It's an Apple software. It's real cool. Makes it very easy to like program everything and do loops and live looping and use backing tracks sometimes, and change the sounds of the guitar and the keyboards and stuff, and make it all sound like an actual band, but it's just me by myself still.
So I guess if you were going to do because you do perform live concerts as yourself, but you bring your looping pedal and keyboard with you, is that right? I know we've seen you do it a couple of times at Rolling Stone.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Do you think it would ever get to the stage where you would need to hire some backing musicians or whatever they call it to play the I don't know how exactly. Actually, this is quite interesting to me. So when you do a live gig, because I don't have a foot in the music community at all, when you do a live gig, would you be able to play backing tracks like of all the instruments that you can't play yourself, and then just play like the guitar and do the singing on your own?
Yeah. Yep, that's exactly how it works. Yeah. Yep.
That makes sense.
So, like with songs that are simple enough that I can do like a live looping thing, like it's a repeating pattern type of thing, that's what I do. But if it's a more complex song, then I have a backing track, and then I play.
It's a question I've actually been wanting to ask about a looping pedal. How do those things work? You put your foot down on them, and that starts to record whatever goes through it, and then you'd have another button on it that just plays that same piece of sampled audio on repeat. Is that the gist of how they work?
Essentially, yeah. I've got one right here. Whoopsie daisy.
Okay, so to the audio listeners, he is showing me the looping pedal, and
this is a Line 6 DL4. It's widely considered to be one of the best delay loop pedals.
So it looks like it has 4 buttons along the bottom. Is that where you push with your foot?
Yep. It's got 4 buttons on the bottom there.
So then presumably that means you can play 4 different pieces of audio kind of looped at once?
No.
Oh, okay. So what are the 4 buttons for?
So this one,
mm-hmm.
that one does the record.
Yeah.
And then you tap it again, and then you can overdub and just keep on recording over what you've played already.
Yeah.
The second button is play and stop. So you can stop it and then play something else, which is different, and then like start it again. And then this one that does like one loop of it.
Oh yeah.
So if you want to stop after a while, you can do that one, and like it'll like a dramatic finish type of thing.
Yeah.
And then this one on the end, that one it either slows it down by half or speeds it up by half, depending on what you've had it set to prior.
So there's actually quite a bit that goes into what you can do with a looping pedal. It's setting me into like a panic thinking about trying to manage all of that. Is it something that you find like a little bit challenging when you're doing a live performance, or do you just kind of figure out what you need to push and then get this track down and that kind of thing, then play?
Yeah, it's a lot of experimentation and playing around in the bedroom in the most fun way possible that you can play around in a bedroom.
It's up there.
Yeah, or I mean, for me at least.
Right, yeah, I'd probably be in the same camp as that.
But yeah, I mean, it is difficult, like getting the timing right on everything.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Like if you fuck it up a little bit, then it's fucked up completely type of thing. Sorry if I shouldn't be swearing, but
no, it doesn't matter. It's
right.
It's a comedy pod. We are all good with the swears. Well, I mean, we were just talking about James Bond names before, so we're well and truly demonetized now if we weren't.
Right, yeah.
But no, please express yourself how you'd like.
Cool. Get out of it.
If you heard any of that was one of Steve's cats trying to help.
Yeah, she's chewing on the phone stand.
Oh, I don't know. My cat at home he won't eat the actual food we put in his bowl, but then they just are absolute fiends for anything else. They'll chew anything,
Bit annoying.
Yeah. But back to the music.
Yep.
So I'd like to talk a little bit about your tour of America you did, because that fascinates me. That is like such a dream for someone who lives in New Zealand, I think, how do we set this up? So when did you go to America?
So I've been twice. I did like a round the world trip in 2012, where I went to Australia, a little bit of Asia, Europe, and then a few spots across America. And then I did America only in 2014.
And that was your big music gig one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So that's the one that I find super fascinating. Did you have any plan? You probably knew the cities you were going to go to, but you didn't have any gigs lined up.
No.
How did you decide the route to take?
So I didn't know the cities I was going to go to.
Right.
No, it was all kind of made up as I went type of thing.
Yeah.
I landed in Los Angeles. I bought a van in Los Angeles, and then...
How much did that cost you?
It's a difficult question, because I bought it, and I had it for, I don't know, a week and a half, and
Mhm.
it broke down
Ah,
on what are they called, freeways there,
yeah.
and so I had to get it towed back to the place that I bought it from. They fixed it, which took like 3 weeks. It was real annoying.
Oh, gosh.
But while they were fixing it, I like kind of looked at a map and saw where I wanted to go.
Right,
Like
right.
there was a few places that I wanted to go to, like Disney World in Florida.
Naturally.
I wanted to go there. So, I mean, from LA across the bottom to Florida,
Yeah.
and kind of zigzagged up through the middle, then across the top there, like past where Mount Rushmore is,
Yeah.
through like Idaho and all that stuff up the top there, across to Seattle, and then down the west coast back to LA. Yeah, it's
That's
good
a
fun.
great trip. And that was about, 3 months? Is that how long the visa is for tourists?
Yeah, I was there a little bit longer, but nobody
They didn't seem to mind.
nobody cared.
That's brilliant.
And the other thing is I had a New Zealand driver's license, restricted driver's license at the time.
Nice.
I didn't have a full
Nice.
driver's license.
And that wasn't an issue?
No.
Man,
got
land of the
pulled over
free.
got pulled over a couple of times, and that's it. Oh, New Zealand, that's weird. Okay.
Yeah. And they probably didn't know to look that it wasn't a full license, so they just went, yeah, he knows how to drive on home soil.
Yeah.
What did you find? Did you have any sort of culture shock, or what did you find? How did you feel dealing with Americans? Were they surprised to see a Kiwi over there, or were they pretty like nonplussed?
I think people mostly didn't really care that I was from somewhere else.
Yeah.
I don't know, some people had questions, I guess. But yeah.
That sounds so suspicious.
Yeah.
Questions like, why is there a chicken in your carry-on luggage, sir?
I mean, I did have a couple of run-ins with police. And they're like, why are you parked here?
Right.
Like I was parked when I was in Portland. I was like parked outside a friend's house, and their neighbour was suspicious of why there was a van parked outside their house,
yeah.
and they called the police on me. And then
Wow, snitches.
yeah, I wasn't doing
Man.
anything.
Yeah,
And
That's gotta
so
be tricky
I just
to
got
have.
told to move across the street.
nice. That's pretty good. Yes, you sir, take your New Zealand driver's license and move this van across the street, and then you'll be sweet as.
Mm-hmm.
And then you were telling me the one part that I was most envious about it was the fact that you just set up gigs. Like you said, you like walked into the place the afternoon, asked if you could play some music, and a lot of places were just like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, that happened a few times. Yep. Yeah, the coolest one was probably in Iowa. There was
What was so cool about that one?
I don't know, it was just a cool little like pub. Looked like just like an Irish pub, like a Cheers type of a pub.
Nice.
And yeah, I went in there and they said I could play because there was nothing else going on, and like a bunch of people turned up that evening just to have like dinner and drinks and stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, I sold a bunch of CDs at that show, and
Awesome.
yeah, paid for some fuel to get to the next place.
That's what you want. I think that's one of my favourite things about touring, any kind of touring, is you get to see these little places that have such character around the country. Like probably one of my favourite ones of these was up in Gisborne. It was a place called the Saloon. And actually, no, sorry, it wasn't Gisborne, it was Wairoa, excuse me. And in these little towns, I love how you just have like the one kind of local watering hole, and this one, the saloon, was really cool. I suspect it was a carpentry, some kind of not a factory as such, like a boat, a place they would have worked on boats or something like that back in the day. And since then it's been converted into like a little pub with pool tables, and it has this room at the back. You would have actually loved it because they had all these old Japanese movie posters up on the wall. They had one of Godzilla right behind the stage. So given that at the time my solo show's name was Rudzilla,
yep.
I felt pretty happy to perform in front of that.
Oh, I remember seeing pictures of that. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Do you have you done a lot of road gigs in New Zealand? We did one to Dunedin last year, which was Dog with Two Tails. Have you done any other touring around New Zealand?
With comedy or music or both, or
either or? Any performance discipline?
Yeah. So comedy, like you say, that Dunedin one. I've also been over to Hokitika and up to Auckland. A couple of months ago, I went up to Auckland.
Where did you play in Auckland?
A few bars, Love Shack.
Oh, yep.
Red Bar.
You do the Red Bar? I love Red Bar.
It's a cool little spot. And
yeah, such cool, the cartoons on the walls.
Yeah.
Love that.
And what was the other?
Did you do Revelry?
No. It was a name like Dog with Two Tails, but it wasn't.
Oh, Thirsty Dog, probably.
Thirsty Dog, yeah.
Yep. I've heard good things about Thirsty Dog. I was sort of been like a long-running plan to do, I don't know, maybe this one time or one of my solo shows there. It looks really cool from what I've seen. The one you did on Hokitika, that was the Old Lodge Theatre?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
What's that like? I know a lot of people have played it, but I've never been to it before. What's the kind of capacity of that?
It's probably capacity, I don't know, maybe 50 or 60, I guess. It's not huge.
That's great. That's perfect for me then.
Yeah, it's a nice little spot. It's a cozy little theatre. Cool stage. It's, just like a little performance hall. Yeah.
Awesome. I'll definitely have to try and get over there. What sort of demographic did you get out to the show? Was it, I'm guessing it was older, but I was really surprised in Methven on the weekend how many young people we got in.
Yeah, it was older, but yeah, when we went out afterwards, there was a lot of young people out in town.
Yeah.
And there was...
What is Hokitika? It's a tourism kind of... That's the industry that kind of fuels it, right, is tourism?
Yeah.
Those towns can be interesting.
The glowworm caves are nearby, I think. And
yes, yeah. Those kind of towns are interesting. I think not Kaiapoi. God, I always do this. There's three places I'm like dyslexic with. It's Kaiapoi, Akaroa, and Kaikoura. I always say the wrong one. I don't think I've ever had the correct one come out of my mouth when I say those three. We were in Kaikoura like a few days ago, and it's one of those places where, like you say, there's like a town, there's a couple of bars that are open later, but that's generally where all of the young folk go out to party afterwards because they're all doing their sort of tourism, kayaking, caves, etc., seasonal work. I just never knew what Hokitika was. The only other thing I know about it is there's glass blowing in Hokitika. That's a big thing there, apparently.
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll get back to your performance.
Okay.
What was the kind of thing that made you decide you wanted to try stand-up? Because you've been doing music for a long time before you got into stand-up, haven't you?
Yes. Well, like I've done a couple of open mics throughout the years before I started doing it properly. Like just doing like little silly characters and things. Just things to make myself laugh.
Yeah.
And a couple of times it made other people laugh.
That's always a bonus.
Yep. And then it was like 2019 going into 2020. I had lined up a bunch of gigs, like touring and stuff, like all around the country for the music. And then, of course, old Corona struck and shut everything down.
So then that sucks, man.
So then I locked myself in this room for a month and came up with the album Aloha Infinity. And then once everything opened up again, I didn't really want to set up shows again. That was a lot of work to put that all together, and then it all went to shit, and then I didn't want to do it again. So then
it kind of feels like what's that, sorry?
Then I was going to say New Year's eventually rolled around, and that open mic at Kensington Funhouse,
the old Kenzo, I miss it dearly.
And my mate Aidan Grealish, he's another comedian.
Familiar with Aidan?
He said he was going to go on it, and then I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'll try and write something and go on it too. Yeah. Which I did. Yep. And that was the start of doing comedy for reals. I've been doing it for,
I was going to say, with your planning tours, it feels like crowd sizes are recovering a little bit in New Zealand. Mm-hmm. It's we were doing pretty well at Kensington. I mean, before pandemic, we were doing really well. We were having some really full nights on the Tuesday and the Friday shows. And then obviously, Corona just, kind of like what you experienced, people didn't want to book anything ahead of time in case they had to pull the plug suddenly.
Yep.
But I've been really surprised this year. Normally winter for can-do comedy is brutal. I have had years where I'm almost we should just take winter off because of how rough of a crowd we were getting.
Mm-hmm.
But really surprisingly, pretty much everything we've done for the last couple of months has been either a full house or a couple of sales off it. So it feels like people are getting out there again. And I was chatting to a mate of mine who runs a page promoting pubs and clubs and gigs and all that sort of thing around Christchurch, and his analysis of the situation is that the venues have realised they have to do things in order for people to come out and do them, because there's obviously there are some really, really good venue owners around. Well, we'll just use Christchurch as an example, but I've had ones that I've tried to set something up with in the past, and they sort of didn't really get it. They kind of felt like comedy was something they could just put on in the corner of their pub, and it would fill the entire place up. But then also, people could come in and drink even if they didn't want to watch the comedy, so they could leave the horse racing on loud on the TVs. And I don't know, you can't really blame them because people don't really know how stand-up works. From a non-comedian perspective, they don't really know how a show works.
Yeah.
So you get these kind of, just people think you can do it in the corner of the room like it's music, but you can't really, unfortunately. People do need to pay attention. But it feels like a lot of them are, like my friend said, they realise they have to run things in order for people to come out. They can't just, people aren't drinking like they used to anymore. And the last few venues we've set up gigs with have been super cooperative with helping us promote it and kind of asking us what do we need for it to be a good night and stuff. So I'm feeling really optimistic about stuff going forward. And I assume it's always been alright in Auckland and stuff, but in Christchurch it feels like it's looking alright to me.
Yeah, that's cool. It's good that they're...
Do you feel like...
Good that they're pitching in, not just leaving it up to...
I had to leave the design to a venue for the Moi Moi show. I had to leave the design in their hands because of my my tendonitis injury.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I would feel a little bit of guilt or laziness from not being super hands-on with it, but no, it was brilliant not to have to do the graphics. It was it was fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm very happy with that decision.
Sweet.
Yeah. You, we'll go into your art a little bit. Do you want to talk about your comic?
Sure. Okay.
How long have you been drawing for?
Since I was a small child. Yeah.
What kind of... I'm going to guess you were into comics?
Not super into comics. A little bit of X-Men, I guess, but...
Yeah. What would you say your influences were when it comes to, like, what art? Because, when you're a kid, you always try to copy... for me, it was Pokemon, stuff like that.
Yeah, more so, like, cartoons on TV, I would say. Like Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah, I can see that in your artwork.
Yeah, Earthworm Jim, the computer game Earthworm Jim.
Yes, I remember him.
Yeah, he was awesome. More modern one, Adventure Time, I reckon that's one of the best TV shows that's ever been created.
That is a good TV show.
Yeah, The Simpsons, obviously. Yeah, I love all that kind of stuff.
And then, what is the premise of the comic you've been sort of playing around with lately? I know, obviously, because I follow you on Instagram, but to the listeners out there, how would you describe your comic to them? The elevator pitch is always the hardest, isn't it?
So that one, it was born out of the second lockdown that we had. So, I mean, it was different all over the world, but here in Christchurch, we had the initial lockdown, then we got set free for a few months, and then we got locked down a second time, and then it was opened up again until now.
Permanently. Yeah.
So yeah, the second one, my friend over in Melbourne, James, shout out to James.
Hey, James.
He was doing a lot of drawing during the lockdowns. I think they had like a consistent one over there in Melbourne. But
yeah, they had. It was like the equivalent of our level 4, but for like 2 years over there, apparently.
Far out.
Brutal.
Yeah. So yeah, he was drawing, and he put like a thing on his Instagram story, give me an idea of something to draw, running out of ideas. And then so I just wrote back an elephant that just got its driving license.
Nice.
And he says, I don't know if I could draw that. Maybe you should draw it. And then I thought about it for a little bit, and then the next day I just did the first comic, which is a 4-panel comic.
Yeah.
About the elephant that just got its driving license. And then, like, every day for the rest of the lockdown, like I drew another 4-panel comic.
Yeah.
And it kind of just like told a little story on its own. Like, I didn't think about it too much. It just kind of flowed out, which was a neat little experiment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, that's how it was born. And then later I drew it a little bit better, which is on my Instagram now. And
yep. Yeah, Steve's a very good artist to those listeners out there. I am full of jealous rage at how good he is at drawing.
Thanks, mate.
Do you have names for all the characters, or are they just all the species that they are? Elephant, giraffe, etc.
They're just called the species that they are. Like, I didn't bother thinking of names. I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, it's not going to harm the immersion of the storyline. No. I was going to tell you as well, I heard this recently, but are you familiar with the Asterix comics? Oh, yeah. Asterix the Gaul?
Yeah.
I learnt recently that those books that you can purchase, the full, like, A4 sheet, whatever they are, those were actually published, one half of those pages came out like every day in the newspaper in France.
Okay.
So in a weird way, your publication of doing 4 panels a day is a little bit similar to the kind of pace that something like Asterix would have been produced at, because you're thinking about doing it as a full kind of book, like a coffee table book kind of thing, weren't you?
At one stage, but I don't think so anymore.
Fair enough. Is it something because you're still making some merch with the characters, is it something you're working on at the moment still?
Yeah, it's just something I play around with, just something in the back pocket that I can play with every now and then. And
Yeah.
if somehow I do manage to get into the right circles with like comedy and stuff, and somebody says, "Hey, have you got an idea for something?" I can say, "Hey, what how's about that?"
Yeah, that's a good idea. Have it ready to go in the chamber.
Yeah.
I like it. So if there's any comic producers out there, I'll leave a link to Steve's
animation. That would be the ideal.
Yes, it could be good. I don't know if a lot of people know this about me, but I used to do Flash animations when I was how old would I have been? I would have been between like 14 and probably 17. I don't know. Have I ever shown you any of those works that I did?
I haven't seen Flash animations, no.
I don't know if it's something I'll ever really talk about, because a lot of it makes me cringe like crazy when I see it now. A lot of the dialogue and everything like that is just very of my age at the time.
It was very big. I loved Homestar Runner. Did you watch that?
Yeah, that was one of the ones. It was sort of it was the generation before me of like animators it was on Newgrounds.
Yeah.
That was my little, I was a big fan of that kind of stuff. And yeah, Homestar Runner was the one before I started. So you used to hear it. I never watched it, but the name is like super familiar. What is it, a baseball thing?
No, it's kind of similar to an elephant that just got its driver's license, I guess.
Oh.
It's just like these characters that exist in this kind of world together, and they have just the interactions, and yeah, it's just
they're almost like mini sketch shows, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Is that something you can see yourself doing in the future, combining your artistic ability with your stand-up routines? Like I've always wanted to have stand-up routines of mine animated. Is that something you could see yourself doing?
I have actually been thinking about that.
I like it.
Because you know that the bit I do sometimes, like my name's Stephen King, and the worst thing about it is I've got ideas for books.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I was thinking of like
that would be a great piece animated.
Like animating a thing and then like projecting it while I'm doing it on the stage.
Oh,
so it's like at the same time.
Yeah, that would work. The whole projector comedy thing is quite interesting because sometimes it's really good and sometimes it's really weird. Like I watched a Dylan Moran show the other day where he had these drawings up behind him on a projector, but they didn't seem to have anything to do with the show. They were just weird drawings. So you can go, I mean that's kind of on brand for Dylan Moran, isn't it? Like just confusing and scary.
Yeah, I think Bill Bailey is kind of similar.
Yes.
Yeah,
I can see you filling a similar niche as Bill Bailey, doing the music and the comedy and then the art. The other one could be Dimitri Martin as well.
Yep.
Is that something you've thought about trying to do? Because you do funny songs, but you don't, I wouldn't say necessarily you do musical comedy. Because, I don't know, do you feel like there's a distinction between funny songs and musical comedy?
I think you need funny songs to make a musical comedy.
You do music and comedy.
Yeah. So yeah, like all the Gear Loose songs, they're not funny songs.
No, they're just good songs, yeah.
Oh, thanks, mate. But they do have some little kind of like wry jokes, like kind of.
There's a little bit of whimsy in it, isn't there?
Yeah, like Paul Simon sometimes like writes little funny lines into his things, like roly-poly little rat-face girl.
Yeah.
Which is a funny line, but it's not meant to be a funny song.
Yeah, sometimes lyrics can be like that.
Yeah, so I don't know. The dream is to combine it all into one big fun stage thing at some point. I
think you've heard me saying this to you before, but like I always kind of figured once you figure out your like I'll give you an example. Have you ever seen Tapeface? He's a New Zealand performer. So like when you go to a Tapeface show, it's called the House of Tape, and it's like there's like ripped cardboard props and tape everywhere in the stage direction, and it's like you kind of step into this character's world when you go to the stage show.
Mm-hmm.
And like I've always said, like when you figure out where your version of that is, it's going to be like a killer show to go to. Like just all the little things that you do, and like your kind of whimsical little art style and your jokes and your music and stuff. It's going to be a sick show.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah.
There's a local band here in Christchurch. They're called Ken's Tea Band.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, they do some really cool stuff as well. They perform at the Dark Room sometimes.
Yeah.
Like it's a live theatre type of thing.
I love that,
but with like rock music.
Yeah. Yeah,
like
that's
they have
awesome.
puppets sometimes and stuff. It's really awesome.
Brilliant.
It's really awesome.
I like it. Is that something you could see yourself expanding into, puppetry?
No.
Fair enough. You've got enough hats on at the moment. I think we're sort of coming up on about 50 minutes there, so it'll probably shrink a tiny bit as I edit it, but I'd be pretty happy to release that as a nice little 40-minute interview. Is there anything else you wanted to plug or cover before we kind of wrap things up?
No. What, do it like the social medias and stuff?
Yeah, sure. Please plug away.
So it's pretty much just Instagram. I'm not on the Facebook anymore. Don't do Twitter.
I don't blame you. I'm trying desperately to get off Facebook.
Yeah, it's all dumb. I don't do TikTok or Twitter or anything, just on Instagram sometimes, which is at Humble Kingdom for pretty much everything. And then there's an at Gear Loose for just the music.
What about your t-shirt store? What is that?
That's humblekingdom.threadless.com.
Steve has some very, very cool t-shirts. That's one thing that we never talk about, but we share a passion for merch design.
Uh-huh.
So definitely go check out some of Steve's stuff. I keep meaning to pick up the Katakana Gear Loose t-shirt, the one where you've chucked that like perspective warp on it.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's sick. A very like sort of early 2000s Toonami kind of Aqua Teen Hunger Force kind of vibe. I don't know why, but that's what it comes across to me.
Sure,
And
yeah.
I just think it's cool. Yeah, so thanks for joining me on the pod, Steve.
Cheers for having me.
Good to chat to you. I hope I haven't talked over you too much. I tend to do that when we chat, so I did my best to let you speak. But yeah, we'll bring you back in a few weeks, do another chat if you're keen.
All right.
Otherwise, hope you have a good King's birthday. Happy birthday again.
Cheers. It's not my birthday, but I'll take it.
Well, you know.
I'll have two.
I mean, really, you're the only king that I, serve fealty to. So it's as far as I'm concerned, today is your birthday.
All right.
This podcast won't be released on King's birthday, but it was recorded on King's birthday.
Fair dinkum. That could be a lady's name.
Fair dinkum?
Yeah.
That's not bad. Yeah, just like that. Steve brings it full circle. Back to the Jim Bond.
Yep.
All right, thanks, Steve. We'll catch you next time.
Cheers, mate.
And we are back. I hope you enjoyed that episode. It was a little bit of a change of pace for me. Thought we'd try something different and do something more typical comedian podcast. Had a lot of fun talking to Steve, and I'm sure he'll be back in some form or another. Won't take up too much more of your time. As we stated at the end, you can find Steve on Instagram at Humble Kingdom. You can also check out his music at Gear Loose, and those are both on Instagram. As for me, I am once again on every platform except for Twitter at Taylor Ruddle Comedy. Got a couple of plugs to get out of the way before I send you on your merry way. On this coming Wednesday, the 21st of June, at Meepalopolis from 7 o'clock, I am hosting edition number 2 of the Pop Quiz, which is basically a quiz format, but instead of being a lot of questions read out about like trivia and stuff, it is very visual. Things like the emoji round, guess the character based on the emoji, guess the character based on their Tinder profile, guess the character based on their famous last words, all sorts of fun and hopefully interesting things like that. Costs you $10 to play, or you can just order some food from the venue. I'm hoping by this point we have booked out, but if we haven't, go to meepalopolis.com/bookings to book yourself in now. We recommend a team of about 4 to 6. The following night, on the 22nd of June, we are at Sprig and Fern for our comedy club. For one night only, the dining area transforms into the Pork Pie Lounge. Got an absolutely fantastic little lineup for you there. It is such a fun little show. The last one completely booked out, so I'd recommend maybe contacting Sprig and Fern to make sure it hasn't booked out already. But if it hasn't, book yourself in, and we'd love to see you there. It's such a fun little room. Shows are always great, and the place is dog friendly as well, so if you have a canine companion that you would like to bring with you, you are more than welcome to do that. Then on the 24th of June, we are at Union Fair again for our dinner and a show. We've adjusted the price slightly on this one, as we were just the venue and ourselves, we were struggling to make any kind of return on our time that was sort of justifiable for us. So now it is $70 per person, which is pretty steep, but you get a whole heap for that $70. You get a nibbles platter, you get a main, you get a dessert, and you get entrance to the comedy show. It is a delightful little venue, Union Fair. The staff are great, they really look after you, and the food is incredible. Super fine dining, kind of fancy stuff. It's great. And of course, hilarious comedy show. And then last but not least, on the 29th of June, we are back out at Five Stags Rangiora for date night comedy. That is at 7 o'clock, and it is $45 per person, and for that you get dinner and entry to the comedy show. And the food at Five Stags is fantastic. They do great sort of traditional pub kind of restaurant food. Very, very good stuff. And we've got a hell of a lineup, actually, and very rare for New Zealand comedy, but we actually have more ladies than fellas on the lineup. So we are woke. We are woke as fuck at Can Do Comedy. No, totally incidental. Everyone on the lineup, super funny. It's a great little show to come out, especially if you haven't shown your other half or your other halves. We don't judge, it's 2023. If you haven't shown your other half a date night in a while, it's getting cold, middle of winter, why not come along and have a laugh with us and enjoy some delicious food at Five Stags Rangiora? We'd love to see you there. You can get tickets to pretty much all of these events by going to www.candocomedy.com/tickets, or if the tickets aren't available there, go to our Facebook page, which is at Can Do Comedy, and you'll be able to find out who to contact to book in. Usually it's messaging the venue on Facebook. That's all from me. Hope you have a wonderful rest of the week. Really appreciate you tuning in. I will catch you next time. Ruddle her out.